After that, question answer session, followed by Aarti, Maharti, will be do in the temple hall. So it is all request to all of you that after the class and question answer session, please proceed to the temple hall.
Okay.
We'll have a Aarti over there, and after that, we'll go for question. So let's welcome again. It's our fortune to welcome him to this Sri Sivan temple. So let's welcome him while loudly saying Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Directly connect this thing to the projector, or you want to connect to
तार है, लंबी तार है। हाँ, लंबी तार है।
अच्छा क्या हो गया? चलो
हो गया
अगर हो रहा है तो रहने दो उसको।
नहीं, ये हो रहा नहीं, वो ये हो रहा नहीं है, ये हो रहा नहीं है। इन्होंने भेजा है अब अपने अनंत कुमार को। नहीं, वाईफाई कनेक्ट नहीं हुआ। वो मेरे वाला ये मैं साइलेंट कर देता हूँ।
हो गया चैतन्य गलत से हो माइक भी चाहिए? नहीं हो रहा है, कनेक्ट नहीं हो रहा है।
अच्छा, ये वाला ले लो आप, मेरे वाला ज्वाइन करो। आईफोन ठीक है, हो गया। मैं ये मोबाइल यहीं छोड़ देता हूँ साइलेंट।
ज़रूरी है क्या? उनकी बड़ी थी और
हाँ, मैं आपकी सेटिंग है। तो ये भी लगा दीजिएगा। पासपोर्ट क्या है? पासपोर्ट तो ये
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा, is better? हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम stand, राम राम हरे हरे। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे, निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। I'm grateful to be here with all of you today, and we'll be discussing today on some life lessons, some wisdom from the Ramayana. And now, broadly speaking, that there are good people who do good things, and that there are bad people who do bad things. Now, this is broadly speaking the way the universe is also understood to be in the Vedic tradition. There is Daiva Asura Evacha. There are two kinds of people, the divine and the demoniac. So, okay. I had a digital and a physical garland. So, okay, fine. So now, this is the general polarity that we expect. That yes, there are some good people who do good things, there are bad people who do bad things. But then, there are exceptions. There are exceptions where good people sometimes do bad things. And there are people whom we think are bad, but they do good things. So most people in the real world they don't really fit into this neat polarity. Yes, there is good and there is bad, but most of us exist in the mix somewhere. This is the muddled middle. We all have some good inside us, sometimes bad inside us. So when some good people do bad things, or especially when bad people do good things, if anybody does good, that's nice, that's surprising, that's beneficial, that's nice for us. But especially when some good people do bad things, that can be very disturbing. Because when we are functioning in life, life is tough. There are many problems that we face, there are many difficult situations that we have to deal with. And at such times, we need to know whom can we trust and who can be our supporters, who understand us, who share our values. So we want to know who are good people. But when good people do bad things, so what makes them do such things? And how do we deal with that? How do we make sense of that? So broadly speaking, if we consider the Ramayana, can you give any example of good people doing bad things? Yes? One is Kaikai. You mentioned that. So Kaikai, she ended up having Ram exiled. That is one thing. Anyone else? Wali. Yes, Wali is another example. Sugri, what did he do?
He was going to search for Mother Sita. He went and
Okay, Sugriv lost.
Recording in progress.
Yes, Sugriv lost himself in sensual pleasures. He forgot himself. So, we could say that if he wanted to put it on a spectrum, any other characters? Vishwamitra, what did he do? Okay, Vishwamitra, when he was basically, it was before he became Vishwamitra. When he was a king Kaushik, and then he took away the cow and he tried to attack him. So we'll see that there are good people also who do bad things. Now broadly, if you wanted to put in a spectrum, let's see, if we consider, see these three are the most central characters. Vishwamitra is also a character within the Ramayana. But Vishwamitra is also, he's a sage who is widespread, he's there elsewhere also. If among these three characters, Sugriv, Wali and Kaikai, whose bad action was less, whose bad action was more? What do you think? Kaikai was more. Okay, was that the most?
yes.
The worst was whose? Wali? Wali. Okay. Then we have Sugriv. Now we may decide, how do we decide how bad is somebody's action? So one thing is, we could even look at it in terms of the effect. Effect, what, how much did it result? So basically, how bad, how much was the negative effect, and we can look at how long did that particular effect last. So from that perspective, Sugriv was for basically a few days. He had made a promise to Lord Ram that I will be there with my entire army to help you find Sita after you help me to get back the kingdom. So, but there he completely lost himself in just sensuality. But in a few days at the most, it might have been a few weeks. After the 4 months got over, Lord Ram was waiting eagerly, almost impatiently, for him to do something, and he was not doing anything. Now Kaikeyi, her action had result for how long? 14 years. And if you consider the Wali, how long was that? It was practically lifelong. The Mahabharata is not really specific about how long Sugriv was being pursued, but it went till his death, basically. Till his death. So now none of these are villains, none of these are bad people. Now, if we consider what impels anyone to act, so when we act in particular ways, say right now you came for this program. Some of you may be regularly coming for this program, but today you didn't come for this program. Some of you may be hearing online. So when we do our actions, there are many factors that shape our actions. Those factors can be broadly categorized as external and internal. But quite often, there are very few actions which come only from external sources and very few actions that come from only internal sources. They're generally a combination of both. So external, we could simply put that as conditions. There are particular conditions when we become impelled to do certain things. And then there are conditionings. Conditionings which also can prompt us to do certain things. So broadly speaking, when we human beings act, we could put it that, say, if the conditions are positive, conditions are good, and normally the word conditionings is used for something negative, but it doesn't have to be negative. Okay? If I use the word conditioning generically to refer to particular way we are habituated to behave. So for example, if you are brought up in Indian culture, then if our foot touches somebody, then immediately we touch our head. So default way we are offering some respect. So that's you can call it a conditioning. It's a habit, but it's more of a default behavior. So it's something ingrained within us. So now, if the conditions and conditionings, they can be in 4 combinations. That the condition can be positive and the conditioning can be positive. That means that, say, somebody has a tendency to live an honest, upright life, and they are living in a society where also honesty, integrity, uprightness is appreciated. So if you can go back to the Vedic context, there's somebody that wants to do Brahmanical activity like doing yajnas, and then there is a king who supports and sponsors and protects yajnas. Then the external condition and the internal conditioning. So we could say this is the best situation to be in. And the conditions are positive and the conditionings are also positive. Now conditions could be just the atmosphere of the place. There could be some particular people in that place. It can mean many different things. But conditions and conditionings. Now conversely, the worst situation is where the conditions are bad. When we say the conditions are bad, that means Not it can be bad in various ways. Bad means, say, somebody is in a place in their life where they internally they dislike someone, and then when they dislike someone, maybe that person has treated them a little badly, spoken something harshly to them, and they are annoyed, and they previously also had a little negative conception about that person, so they have a negative opinion about that person, and that is the time, say, they come to know some nasty rumor about that person. Maybe it is true, maybe it is not true, but they come to know about that. Then what happens is, internally there is a dislike, and externally they have come to know something dislikable about them. So this is, for example, when gossip happens. Now, gossip, for it to happen, two conditions have to work together. Now, when we hear something we like about someone we don't like. So, if we like that person, then what will happen? Okay, maybe this is not true, maybe I don't want to talk about this, or maybe I'll try find out from that person what actually happened. But when internally there is dislike and externally we get some information, hey, this person is like this, the two come together and it can be deadly. So even ordinary people can start gossiping at that time. So when conditions and conditionings both are problematic, both are negative, then it works out badly. So now we could look at the other two situations where the conditions are positive but the conditionings are negative. Say, for example, Prabhupada tells the story of a thief who went on a pilgrimage. And when he went on the pilgrimage, he had this tendency to steal. Now, there is a particular behavioral tendency, it's called a kleptomaniac. Now, people just like to steal. There was a British king, he was the king of Britain, he had a tendency to steal. Courtiers, people who would come to visit him, he would steal their shoes. So he doesn't need them at all, but that's just the condition. So he went to that holy place and he has had to steal something. So what he did was, one part of him said, I don't want to steal, this is a holy place. But other part he just had to steal. So what he did was, he took things from one person's luggage, one bag, and put it in some other bag. I took something from somebody else's bag and put it in somebody else's bag. I have to do something. I don't want to take it, but I have to do this. So sometimes what will happen is, somebody's conditions may be positive, but the conditionings may be negative. Then what happens is, the behavior becomes out of place. Physically out of place. Like somebody is very habituated to say speaking swear words. Speaking vulgar words or swear words. And they come in a society which is very cultured. And suddenly they speak some swear words. Everybody will fall silent. What is happening over here? This is not the kind of language you speak over here, isn't it? So the conditions may be positive, but the conditionings may be negative. Now sometimes it could be that what happens is, the conditionings are positive, but the conditions are negative. That means that the person, say, a child was brought up in a very good family, good environment, but then that child goes to maybe a hostel, and in the hostel everybody is into, say, drinking or smoking or into drugs. Now at that time, then there is a inner war. Now we could say to some extent there is an inner war everywhere, but the degree of the inner war can be more or less. So when there is a mismatch between the inner and outer things, the inner war is more. Now inner war, when it is more, then becomes this is like a test for that person. That there's a test of temptation. You go into that situation, but what happens? So for example, Hanuman, when he went to Lanka, he had to search for Sita. And now Sita is a woman. Now where is he going to search for a woman? In women's chambers. And he has come in here secretly, sneakily, so he can't just go in the daytime, so he's going at night. At night he goes to the palaces of Ravana and looking through the windows. Is Sita there over here? Now that there are many provocative sides over there. But he was not disturbed. So sometimes the conditions can be negative, but the conditions can be negative, but the conditionings can be positive. So I'm using the word conditioning in a more neutral way over here. So broadly speaking, for us, when we are trying to function in life, so we need to, if now when somebody is a bad person, we say, bad person means that they intentionally like to do bad things and they even get joy in doing bad things. That is the person who is, you can say, evil. Broadly, you can say our conditionings, if I use the word conditionings as interchangeable to impressions. We all have some samskara, some impressions inside us. We could put them in three broad categories. There is goodness, and the opposite of goodness is wickedness. Goodness means that person has a very good nature. So they will do good things. So when the conditioning is goodness, then they will do good even in bad conditions. That is, somebody who is honest, even if they go into a disruptive, dishonest place, they will not become dishonest. Somebody who is very firm, I'm not going to drink alcohol. They may have to go to a bar, but they will not be tempted by it. So goodness means they will be good even in bad conditions. On the other hand, some people are wicked. Wicked means they are cruel. They not only do bad things, they get joy in doing bad things. Say, if we had to rush to meet someone and there's a lot of crowd over there, rushing through the crowd. While rushing through the crowd, our foot steps on somebody's foot. Now, if we notice that, as soon as we notice, say, oh, I'm sorry, we'll apologize. But suppose somebody notices their foot has stepped on somebody's foot, and they look at that person, and then they deliberately raise their foot and bang it on that person's foot. And they get joy in hurting. You know, what kind of person would do something like that? So, there are wicked people who will be bad even in good conditions. Because they get joy in doing that. They get some perverse pleasure in doing that. So Krishna talks about this as the demoniac nature. Krishna says not only such demoniac people are demoniac, asau maya hatah shatrur hanishye cha paranapi. I have killed this enemy, I will kill that enemy also. But not only that, they say after that they celebrate that they think, just see how clever I am. Adyo abhijanvanasmi konyosti sadrusho maya. Who is as clever as me, who is as smart as me? I fooled everyone else. I destroyed everyone else. So everybody may have a desire for getting more and more money. That's just a part of normal human psychology. But very few among the people who desire money will actually want to kill to get money. And even if somebody kills, even I have friends in the military and they have to defend the kill. It's like we're taking a human life. There is actually a lot of remorse and pain and a lot of agony a person goes through. So if somebody delights in killing, that is demoniac. So there are people who will do bad even in good things. So in good situations. So Krishna describes this kind of mentality in the 16th chapter. So everybody is greedy. I mean, greedy means not everybody, but that greed for money is there widespread, you can say. But what happens is, from that greed, we can use the word covetous. Somebody is coveting a lot of things, coveting, greedy. But from that, somebody just becomes murderous. That's a huge, huge leap. And then, not only murderous, there is sadistically murderous. Sadistically means, sadism is where basically a person gets joy in causing pain to others. So sadism is where the person has a perverse psychology. When seeing others suffer, the person gets joy. So who had a sadistic psychology in our tradition? Somebody associated with the Ramayana only? Sorry? Yeah, Ravana, but somebody became good afterwards. Okay, Mrugari was it, not so in Ramayana. When Mrugari, he wanted to half kill people, half kill animals basically. So sometimes some people take joy in that. And Narada told him, don't do this. So basically the point is that there can be a spectrum in this. You can kill, but somebody gets joy in causing pain to others. Things that, oh, I am so clever, I killed so many people. That is very perverse. So basically, now in between these two, there is goodness, there is wickedness, and then there is weakness. So people who have weakness, what happens is, they will be good in good conditions and they may become bad in bad conditions. So when we have weakness, we all have certain weaknesses. Say, for example, somebody who has taken alcohol sometimes. And they say, no, I'm not interested in taking alcohol, I'm not going to drink anymore. But suppose they go to a party, they go to corporate dinner, as a part of the office obligation, and there everybody is drinking. And we say, just take a drink. Now, they may start and they may keep drinking. So, from weakness, somebody can go down to wickedness. Or somebody can go up to goodness. Somebody becomes sober, they say, I'm never going to drink. And even if they go to a particular place, they don't get tempted. So most of us, so when I talked about this black and white earlier, the good and bad, so the goodness is associated with good and bad is wickedness. So most of us exist somewhere in between these. That we may have the weakness of lust or anger or greed, whatever. And because of that, if we are put in particular situations, the dark side within us may come out. So now, if this happens, what can we do about it? How do we deal with it? So we look at these three characters and we will see how they had some weakness because of which they did something bad, but then they recovered, and it took different amounts of time for them to recover. So how did that happen? So broadly, now even we talk about conditions. Now conditions can be passive or they can be active. Passive and active, what do I mean? Passive means that they are more like things, and active means there are people. Like somebody goes to a bar or somebody goes to a party where there are drinks available. Okay, those drinks are there and somebody may see that and may get the desire to drink. But somebody goes to a party and there is somebody who's telling them, let's take a little drink, take a few drinks. Somebody is pushing them again and again. Then what happens is the vulnerability becomes more. So conditions can involve both these things. Similarly, if we talk about conditionings, now we can say our conditionings are positive and negative, good and bad, but that we already talked about. But there could be conditionings which are weak and conditionings that are strong. So when there is a weak conditioning, then if the temptation comes, even the desire that comes up is not very strong. But the conditioning is very strong, then the temptation that comes also is very strong. There is weak conditioning and strong conditioning. So we could say, with this broad understanding, now let's look at the three characters. So for Sugriv, now if you consider Sugriv's life, it was quite a turbulent life. He was born in royalty. He lived as a prince, and although he was subordinate to Vali, still he had royal luxury and prosperity to live in. And then he became the king because he thought Vali had died. And then Vali came and attacked him. And in one moment, he lost everything. In some ways, actually Sugriva's predicament was worse than Ram's predicament also. Mainly we can say Sugriva's predicament was worse than Ram because of three main reasons. One was there was no proper parting, no proper separation. Like Ram, he could talk with everyone. Okay, he had to go to the forest, he could talk with his mother, he could talk with even his father, he talked with the citizens. But it is that Sugriva was one day the king and the next day, and just he has to leave from there. He had to rush away from there. In Bangladesh, the Prime Minister was there one day, and she had to just leave immediately. She said, I want to give one last speech. He said, nothing, you have to leave immediately. So there is no problem, and that if somebody has been in an influential position, or somebody is a leading devotee in a community, and just one day they disappear. So that causes pain. So there was no proper separation. There was no proper. Then there was also no family for him. He had friends, Hanuman and Jambavan were there, but Ram had Sita with him. Ram had Lakshman with him. And there was also no safety for him. Now we could say that being in a forest itself is dangerous. But Ram was not being actively persecuted by someone. He was targeted. Bharat was not sending anyone to assassinate Ram. Bharat actually wanted Ram to come back. He was eagerly waiting for Ram to come back. So there was no safety for him. He was constantly being targeted. And on top of that, there was no duration, no clarity about duration. That how long would be in a forest. Ram, he knew after 14 years he would come back. It was like somebody is put in the jail and they don't even know how long you're going to be in the jail. That's far more painful than knowing at least this way. So in many ways his situation was very painful, very difficult. And then after that, when he suddenly came back, he became the king, and then the rainy season started. So he had to live in complete austerity, complete deprivation, and then suddenly he got all the royal luxury back. And not only he got all the royal luxury back, but that royal luxury, and there was no responsibility that he could discharge. So from a material perspective, Ali was a good king. Kishkind was a prosperous kingdom. So they were well stocked for the rainy season. They didn't have to worry about supplies. So he had, what happened for him? Suddenly his situation changed. And when he came back to the kingdom, there was no responsibility in the sense of no immediate responsibility. And there was huge luxury. Especially luxury after he had nothing for a long time. So, like say somebody has lived in some forest area where they've gone on some work or assignment, there's no internet, there is no movies, no kind of entertainment. And they suddenly come back home and they have all the entertainment and suddenly there's a lockdown. So you can't go out and you have full net access. Or somebody might just go on the Netflix binge, isn't it? So Sugriva went on the Netflix binge at that time. He just forgot everything. Just got into enjoyment, and he got into so much enjoyment that the 4 months passed and he just didn't remember. Day after day passed after that. And initially, Ram was agitated. Lakshman pacified him. When Lakshman went to the kingdom, then Lakshman heard sounds of dancing and singing and music. He realized he was just enjoying. And he became angry because of that. So at that time, Lakshman strongly chastised Sugriv. However, to his credit, he completely changed thereafter. So for him, we could say that although he went on the bad track, Sugriv, we could say he was a king. So if he considers conditionings on one side, there was kings are habituated to luxury. But at the same time, kings are also trained to take up responsibility. A king in the palace might be living in great luxury, but a king who goes on the war field, in those times the kings would be expected to lead from the front. And it is not that they would have a lot of luxury on the war field. They have to fight, they have to risk their lives. So today often the political leaders and the military leaders, they are completely different. This happened around the start of the 20th century. Napoleon Bonaparte is considered the last, in the Western world, India or something went on it. He is considered the last political leader who was also a military leader. You see, from the Second World War onward, First World War onward also, none of the heads of state actually were involved in fighting. So that because of that, people can, those who are at the head of state, they can just sit comfortably in air-conditioned rooms and they can send armies to fight, to be slaughtered. So they are ready to do to take up austerities also. But he had got sudden and great luxury. So that we could talk about the conditionings. Now, if you talk about the conditions, there were temptations, a huge temptation that came to him. But then, for him, he also had good association. So good association was, for him, first Hanuman reminded him, then Tara reminded him, and then Lakshman reminded him. And Lakshman's reminder was much more than a reminder. So Hanuman was very respectful and very gentle and polite. The Tara was more like a mother figure for him, the wife of his elder brother. She was a little more strong. And Lakshman came and shook up everything. But to his credit, he changed completely. He didn't have any relapse after that. He didn't give up responsibility for luxury. So we can say in this case, it was primarily due to conditions. What he did was bad, but those conditions were exceptional. It is a unique, not but very rare confluence of conditions. That he had no external responsibility and he had huge luxury which he never had before for a long, long time. So it is, you could say this is largely excusable. It is bad, but it's excusable. It was largely caused by the conditions. Now, which is the next character we are discussing? Okay. So basically, while we are discussing this, we are all dealing with each other. Sometimes we ourselves do something wrong. Sometimes people around us do something wrong. So we need to be able to understand when somebody has done something wrong, how much should we just reject the person or condemn the person, or how much should we excuse the person. So by understanding the situation, understanding the person's conditionings to whatever extent we can understand, and understanding the person's conditions as much as they can be understood, based on that we can decide. Now, for someone whose conditionings are relatively stronger, we'll come to that. We'll look at these three cases and then we'll finally come to some broad conclusions. Now in Kaikeyi's case, what happened if you consider what were the conditions? Sorry? Conditions can be basically events, things that happen, and it can be people. So the event was, yes, so it was the sudden succession plan. Everybody knew that, Dashrath is getting on in the age and he will be handing over the kingdom. And Ram was widely known to be he was the senior most, the eldest, and he was also very worthy, very virtuous, very much loved. It was to be, in one sense, expected. But Dashrath decided to do it quickly. Now there are many reasons for that. One of them is, he said, astrologically, he felt that he was told that after some time there will be a lot of inauspiciousness, so better do the transfer as quickly as possible. But there was a sudden succession plan. So that was a little unusual. But along with that, there was Manthara. Manthara's manipulation. Manthara's poisoning of her mind. And now, in her case, we can say that now if we consider the conditionings. Now, what were the conditionings? There was a certain basic level of jealousy or rivalry among the co-wives. That was natural. It was never to the level of hatred, never to the level of I want to destroy you. But it's just natural. If two people are in a similar situation, what is this person doing? What is this person doing? Nowadays there might be co-wives. If two brothers are living close by and their wives are there, then there might be some, okay, how big is your house? What are you doing? That always the comparison will be there. So natural jealousy and rivalry was there. So that conditioning was there. But at the same time, there was also a dutifulness. Dutifulness means she was a mother. She had a maternal sense of dutifulness. That she never hated Ram. She of course loved her own son, but even Ram also she loved. So even when she wanted to send Ram to exile, it was not out of any hatred for Ram. It was more of her affection for her own son, and she wanted Ram to get out of the way. So now, for her, if you see, there was a particular confluence. Confluence means coming together. Like the Triveni, the Ganga, Jamuna, Saraswati, they all come together. So sometimes conditions and conditionings, there can be a confluence, both come together. And say it can work positively. Sometimes we are going through something in our life because of which we are questioning what is the meaning of life, what am I really meant to do? And say that is the time somebody gives us a Bhagavad Gita, somebody invites us for a Gita class. Then the conditions and conditionings means we are thinking. I'm basically talking about using conditioning generically. We are thinking about something spiritual, and somebody shows us the pathway to something spiritual, and then we take it up. So both conditions and conditionings can come together. So now in this particular situation, what happened? So there was this insecurity or rivalry or jealousy or whatever word, but it was mild, it was not very strong. Her sense of maternal affection for her children, for Bharat primarily, but for all the children, it was quite strong. But then, at that particular time, when Manthara poisoned her mind, she just could not resist it. Manthara told such a story that she just completely bought into it. Now that itself is how Manthara was able to persuade and pervert Kaikeyi. That itself is a complex story, and that could be a separate class. But let's focus here on, there was a negative influence from outside, from Manthara's side. Now for her, if you see, she went on and she didn't listen to anyone. See, normally what happens for us is, say, this is the soul, this is the mind. And then, say here, there is some person. So most people, we look at them through our mind. That means, say, if somebody is very nice to me, and immediately my mind will say, why is this person being so nice? Do they want something from me? What do they want? So if I have a suspicious mind, I will look at them through my mind. So for most people, we look at them through our mind. But there are a few people whom we trust. And then what happens is, they are so close to us that we look at our mind through them. That means, say, if somebody has hurt me, and then this person is so terrible, this person hates me, this person is my enemy, this person wants to destroy me, and that's what every action we will see from theirs we'll see from that perspective only. But if we have some close friend, if we have a spiritual guide, spiritual master or spiritual mentor or whatever, then we trust, and then they tell us, actually, you are being too suspicious, you are being too critical over here. No, yes, that person was going through that situation that time, that's why they spoke like that, that's why they did like that. But that person has also been kind this way, this person helped that person over there, that person, you had a nice relationship with that person in the past. So we need someone we can look at, through whom we can look at our mind. Normally, we look at everyone through our mind. But we need some people through whom we can look at our mind. So, this is a trusted friend. There are very few people who are that close to us. Because whenever anybody has an opinion opposite to our opinion, immediately we become defensive or offensive. And the more closely cherished that opinion is, the more we become offensive or defensive. And if anybody challenges that, then we want to dismiss that person. So for Kaikeyi, for her, when Manthara poisoned her mind, then she was looking at everyone through that poisoned mind. And Dashrath begged her, okay, if you want Bharat to be the king, that's fine. But please don't send Ram away. What has Ram ever done to you? Please don't do that. Vashishta requested her, Sumantra requested her, but she was not ready to listen. But fortunately for her, there was one person whom she trusted enough that through him she could look at her mind. Who was that person? Bharat. So it was only when Bharat came back and she told in a very somber yet celebratory tone, the king is dead and the kingdom awaits you now. Now Bharat was shocked to know what had happened. Bharat's, his shock was actually at 4 different levels. First was at the event itself. What had happened? Oh, my father is dead and my brother has gone to the forest. That itself the event was shocking. Then the cause was even more shocking. That my mother did this. If my father had died because of natural causes, and maybe something had happened, maybe my brother did something because of which he decided I want to go to exile. The cause, how could she have done this? That made it even more shocking. Then, not only that, the intent. Kaikeyi told this whole thing as if I have done all this for you and you should be pleased with this. It's like not only what kind of person are you. Yesterday in the Artha Forum class I was giving the example that we want our children to do well in exams. Say, and a child comes and says, I came first in my class. Oh, wonderful, how did you do that? You wanted me to come first in class? So I learned how to hack computers. I hacked my teacher's computer and I got the full question paper first and I had all the answers ready. That's how I came first. And now, if a child says that, we'll be shocked. Not only what kind of person are you, that's a shock, but what kind of person do you think I am? That I will be pleased by this. Isn't it? So, for Bharat, it was a shock like that. Now, how could you have done this? And how could you, in what universe could you even think that I would be pleased by this? And then, not only that, the fourth shock was perception. that everybody was thinking that he was a part of this plot. And what he had no idea, he would no way supported it, he condemned it, he was being accused of doing it, or at least an unspoken accusation was there. So it was like a huge series of shocks for him. But he just totally condemned her at that time. He says, "You cannot be my mother. You must be the goddess of destruction, descended into our family to destroy our entire family." When Kaikeyi heard those words, she was just completely jolted out of her illusion. Shocked. What is this? Why is Bharat speaking like this? And then as the whole bubble of illusion that she had created around herself, it broke. It just burst completely. And that was when she came back to her senses. And then she terribly repented. What have I done? And she even went all the way with Bharat to get Ram back. So of course, Lord Ram refused to come. But the point was, we can say here, the conditionings, were they there? They were there. But it was the conditions primarily. Conditions especially in terms of not just the situation, the event, but the person. And when a positive person came in her life, somebody whom she could trust, that whole thing ended. So you could say Kaikeyi's actions were more severe than Sugriva's actions, because the consequences were far greater. They were worse. Nobody died because of Sugriva's actions. Dashrath died because of heartbreak, and they lasted longer. So in that sense, those actions were worse. But here also we will see that what happened essentially is that, okay, there is a bad situation. To be in a bad situation and to have a bad person at that particular time in our lives, that's a difficult situation. That's unfortunate. It's something which can make even good people fall. So now if we consider the last is, who is the case we'll discuss? Wali, yes. Now in the case of Wali, we can look at again conditions and conditionings. Now from the perspective of conditions, now it was basically, I won't go into the whole story, but you know that they had gone to Wali and Sugriva were both pursuing a demon named Mayavi, and that Mayavi went into a cave, and it was a long series of caves, like a catacomb underground. So Wali said, "I will go inside." And Sugriva told Sugriva, "You stand on the door." And Wali was gone for a long time, and there was no sound from him, and Sugriva saw blood coming out, and while Sugriva heard the screaming of the demon, but he didn't hear any sound from Wali. And he concluded with a heavy heart that his brother had been killed. And they decided that if that demon is powerful enough to kill my brother, then it will be very difficult for me to kill him. And if he kills me, then he will go and destroy our entire kingdom. I have to stop that demon. And therefore, he blocked that cave's entrance with a giant boulder. And he came back and he reluctantly became a king. Accepted the kingship. Because Angad was too young at that time to become the king. So then, now if you see from Sugriva's perspective, no, it is a misunderstanding. But you can say it was a understandable misunderstanding. An understandable misunderstanding. Anybody could have come to that conclusion. Similarly, when Wali came back, and when Wali came near the cave entrance and he saw this huge boulder, he started suspecting, how could such a giant rock come and exactly cover this? This didn't happen by chance. How did it happen? He called out to Sugriva. There's no Sugriva over there. After great effort, he finally pushed that boulder away, and he came out. And he looked and he saw there was no sign of any scuffle, any violence. So had Sugriv been killed and some demon had put it over there? Did Maya be an accomplice? Didn't seem like that at all. And then started thinking, in royal families, when there is so much at stake, there could be trust, but there's also suspicion. There can be betrayal, there can be brothers fighting against brothers. And did Sugriv do this to me? And when he came back and he saw Sugriv on the throne, he just exploded. And jumping on Sugriv and pounding him. Now, we could say it was understandable misunderstanding from Sugriv's side and Vali's side also. So that is true. But now where did he go wrong? Now Sugriv was trying to explain to him, but he was just not ready to hear. So Sugriv decided that the kind of mood my brother is in, if I stay here, he will beat me to death. Better let me go away right now, and I will live to tell my tale on another day. But unfortunately, when Sugriv ran away, for Vali, it confirmed his suspicion. If he were not guilty, why would he run away? And then, after that, what happened is, so it was an understandable misunderstanding, it was tragic. But after that, the conditioning that came into the picture over here was his arrogance. His first misunderstanding was perfectly okay. But then afterward, the other citizens, the other courtiers, even his own wife Tara, told him that no, Sugriv thought that you had died. Now what happened was, because of his arrogance, now if somebody is a leader, somebody is a king, they have to have a certain level of confidence. Now if somebody is constantly second guessing themselves, hey, should I be doing this, should I not be doing that? If somebody is constantly second guessing themselves, somebody has a lot of lack of confidence, they have diffidence, then they can't even manage their own life. How can they manage anyone else's life? So somebody who is a leader has to have a certain level of confidence. But from confidence to go to overconfidence, that is very easy. So Vali did have a certain level of pride. So what happened is, because of that pride, he dismissed what explanation everybody was giving him. He said, he told you a story and you all believed the story. Now, how will you actually know what was Sugriv's thought? He says, Sugriv made a whole plot and he came up with a story. And you just believed the story. You thought I could be killed like this? So, anyone who tried to support Sugriva, he just dismissed them. So, what happens is that arrogance can lead to overconfidence, it can lead to dismissiveness. Dismissiveness towards others' opinions. And not only others' opinions, he could have at least given Sugriva a chance. Now what happened? You tell me in your words. That Sugriva could have lied. That's possible, of course. But generally, if somebody is just lying right in the face, unless they are very good liars, and very bad people, that means. But it's very difficult to lie completely in the face of someone. And if you know someone very well, their lying can be detected. Especially those who are supposed to administer justice. And they call it, somebody is in the police, or somebody is an investigator, somebody is an attorney, lawyer. They're supposed to be good at what you call as deception detection. If somebody is trying to deceive. So at least he could have given Sugriv a chance to tell his side of the story. But he did not do that. So the conditions were bad. But what Vali did went far beyond the conditions. In the conditions, his attacking Sugriv was understandable. But he's never giving Sugriv a chance to tell his side of the story. That was unreasonable. Beyond that, he's thinking, Sugriv tried to kill me once and he will try it again. Therefore, before he can kill me, I will kill him. And when he heard this, when he thought like this, he decided to go out. I will kill Sugriv. This is brutal. The brother with whom he had lived throughout his life, with whom he had fought so many wars, he's out to kill him now. And then finally what happened? Sugriv had to flee all over the world to somehow hide. I realized I cannot hide from anywhere because Vali will come wherever I go. And finally he found a place. Which was the place? Rishabmukh Parvat. Because there was a curse where because of which Vali could not come there. And that enraged Vali like anything. Like, I want to kill him, he's right near me, but I can't do anything to him. No, I was giving this class in America and one devotee came to me, a Chinese devotee. He says, this is how China feels like about Taiwan. So, anyway, the thing was, I have to do something to him and I can't do anything to him. And because of that rage, that rage that just could not get any vent, he decided to hurt Sugriv in a way that was, okay, there can be misunderstanding. Kshatriyas kill each other. That's there. It's terrible, but it's just there. But then he decided to punish Sugriv by taking Sugriv's wife for himself. And when he did that, many mistakes can happen and mistakes can be forgiven. But certain boundaries, when they are crossed, then it becomes very difficult to come back. It becomes almost impossible. So later on, when Ram heard from Sugriv what Vali had done, Ram became especially angry at this point. And later on, when Ram killed Vali, now, there are many reasons and explanations about why Ram did not kill him in a fair fight. But when Lord Ram shot that arrow from nowhere, when he was fighting with someone else, and that arrow pierced into his heart and he just fell on the ground. Now, through that arrow, Ram gave Vali an experience similar to what Vali had given Sugriv. That for practically no mistake of his, Sugriv had been punished so painfully. And then when Ram did the same to Vali, that was the time, initially Vali was enraged and he blasted out at Ram. But then, after his anger went down, then Ram said, if you think that what I have done is wrong, I will remove that arrow and I will restore your life to you. But then he explained to him what all he had done. So, by this, yes, was Lord Ram's action unfair? Yes, in that context of the immediate battle, it was definitely unfair. But in the bigger picture, there was a higher purpose. By causing him that pain, in a way similar to the kind of pain he had caused, he actually opened the eyes of Vali. And finally, there was a deathbed reconciliation. That before Vali died, Vali understood what wrong he had done. And he apologized to Sugriv. So, these were brothers and they had been very close to each other and they had gone to a terrible distance, becoming enemies. But by the way Ram killed Vali, Ram actually brought about that reconciliation. And the proof of that reconciliation was that Vali actually told Sugriv that, don't take out your anger at me on Tara or Angad. Now Tara actually, today only she counseled me. She has been repeatedly counseling me to patch things up between both of us. He said, he's after all your brother. Don't do this. He said, and then he told Angad that no, I have been killed by my own actions. Don't blame your brother. Don't blame Ram for it. He told Sugriv, Tara is very wise. Take her counsel. He told Tara, you're a royal. You will stay under the shelter of Sugriv. So he created a reconciliation. And that would not have happened if Ram had not shot him that way. But the point was that what he did, if you can consider, in his situation, the conditions played only a small part of the role. The conditionings were the major cause. And when the conditionings are a major cause, then the person has to be disciplined. The person has to be, discipline can be in the form of punishment or some kind of corrective action has to be there. So Lord Ram, he was purified by the arrow of the Lord, and he departed. He also had a glorious departure. The way Jatayu departed in the presence of Lord Ram, Wali also departed in the presence of Lord Ram. Wali was never exactly a devotee of Lord Ram, but he departed in a similar way. So his departure was auspicious. Lord Ram brought him to an auspicious end. But the point was here, he was not, when he took Ruma for himself, that was not out of lust. That was more out of, she became like a pawn in the power struggle between him and his brother. It's unfortunate. But the thing was, it was his conditionings that were primarily responsible for his actions. So, what do we conclude by this? Two main points. Now, for all of us, that our actions are determined by our conditions and our conditionings. So as far as conditions are there, we need to try to situate ourselves in positive conditions as much as possible. And we all need to avoid or minimize, situate or maximize. So the conditions that will inspire us to act virtuously, act devotionally, we need to maximize those conditions. That's why satsang is so important. Satsang is external, going to a temple is external. But if our social circle, this is one advantage of being outside India, is that for many Indians, if they become devotees, their social circle becomes their spiritual circle. And then we become encouraged and facilitated in our bhakti by that. So we need to maximize the situations, where maximize the positive situations. And similarly, say it appears to basically to the things, the places, and also the people. If there are people who we see by observing people, sometimes when we spend some time with people, after that our consciousness completely goes down. They gossip about this. They may be devotees also, but sometimes devotees also are of different kinds. They just gossip about this, they blame about this person, they blame that person. Now of course it can happen that sometimes some devotees may have gone through some great difficult situations in their life and they are feeling hurt and they need to vent out. That's once in a while is okay. But if that's how they are always complaining about this person and complaining about that person and blaming that person, then they may be devotees, but Chakravarti Pad says that we should keep a distance from such devotees. So there are people who bring out the worst within us. Whether it is intentional or unintentional, then we have to be careful that for the things and the people, the conditions, we try to minimize them as much as possible. And that is where how the conditioning surface in our life, that is not so much in our control. Now we can say, what kind of conditions come in our life also is not in our control. Well, yes and no. No. That there is a significant degree of control we have. No, that we don't have to necessarily go into places of temptations. In the early days, devotees would go everywhere and preach. So they would go to, and one time devotees went to a bar and they started doing kirtan in the bar. And in the bars, they have generally some kind of singing happens. So devotees went and did kirtan over there. And for us, kirtan is sacred. For them, it was just some music. Not for them, and the people in the bar. I said, no. And they came and told Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, we need to consider: are we likely to make devotees over here, or are we likely to lose devotees over here? Isn't it? So, even in the name of service, we have to be careful. We don't have to put ourselves in tempting situations unnecessarily. So, in traditional cultures, there generally there was some level of gender segregation. That is, male-female distances are there. Now, in contemporary cultures, that level of gender segregation is not there. But certain level of gender distance, gender separation, certain level of respectful distance is necessary. Now, if we don't have that, then now we may put ourselves in unnecessary tempting situations. So we need to be careful. I was in America when I started doing Western outreach. So in the West, the gender differences are quite less. So I was in a college program in America, in Texas, and then there was one American girl. She asked a question: why do religions fight among each other? So I gave an elaborate answer, and I could see she was quite relieved by that answer. And then after that, after class, I was talking with different people, and she came there. She said, I'm so grateful for this answer. I always had a spiritual urge for a long time, but seeing all the violence in the name of religion, that made me always hesitate in my spiritual search. You have rid a big burden from my heart. I'm so grateful to you. Can I give you a hug? Now, in their culture, a hug is just an expression of affection. So now, I looked at the devotee who was the youth preacher over there. I told him, please help me. I didn't say that, I just indicated to him. Now he helped me, but in an entirely unexpected way. He said, he's a monk, on his behalf you can hug me. His wife was next to him. And his wife said, I am his wife, on his behalf you can hug me. And then they hugged each other. It's protection through parampara. So, I talked about this incident with my spiritual master Radhanand Maharaj. So, since I have been doing Western outreach and Maharaj also is focusing on that, so I talk about him, I give a report of what I am doing. So Maharaj said that, that when they are offering some appreciation or affection, if you just apply Indian standards and say, oh, don't you have any sense of decency, don't you have a sense of culture? If you reject that, if you condemn or reject that, you will be alienating them. That will be violence to their spiritual life. But if you accept that, that will be violence to your spiritual life. So we have to find a graceful way. We don't want to be rude, but at the same time we have to be careful. So the point is that we may be in particular conditions where certain actions we could justify them because of the situation. But we have to be careful. So we don't have to put ourselves in situations where our conditionings may get triggered. So for us, with respect to conditionings are there. Now what happened to Wali was that he didn't accept anyone's good advice. Because he was the king, he was the top person, he had no authority above him. No one whose guidance he could turn towards, or even the input he could take in. Kaikeyi took in the input of Bharat. Not anyone else, but at least Bharat. But for Wali, there was no one, unfortunately. So for us, our conditioning should never become such that I don't need advice from anyone else. Everybody can have a certain level of pride. And we all have some pride. But the pride which says that there's nothing I can learn from anyone else, that's a terrible thing to be. So if our conditionings are there, what we need to do is the positive conditionings, we need to nurture them, we need to strengthen them. And the negative conditionings that are there, that we need to reduce them. We need to ultimately renew them. So how do we do this? So basically, the conditions are changed broadly through the bhakti environment. The bhakti environment could be in our home, we have a temple, we come to the satsang, and the conditionings are changed by our bhakti practice, that through our personal practices. And that's why one of the key practices that is often neglected, we have our sadhana, we have our japa, we have satsang, we have various things, but one of the things is guhyam akhyati prachyati. We need to have close friends with whom we can share our heart. And they can share their heart and we can share their heart. We can share our heart with them. So even if we have one friend like that, then our mind's conceptions, whatever they might be, they won't rule us, they won't dominate us, they won't destroy us. So cultivating that kind of friendship is important in the limb of bhakti. We may have general association, that is good, but we also need some like-minded association. So I'll conclude with this point, that what is like-minded, sajatiya sangha, like-minded association. It has broadly three features. That in such association, first of all, it is that we understand their mind. That means when they speak, things click for us. Like sometimes what happens, sometimes we ask a question and we get an answer that only raises more questions in our mind. Sometimes we may not be able to make some sense of something from scripture logically. And we ask a question and they explain a scriptural point with another scriptural quote. And that's okay, but how do we make sense of it logically? So when they speak, we understand their mind. Then second is, they understand our mind. So if we speak, they don't immediately start labeling, hey, you are being too over analytical, you are being sentimental, you are being sahajiyaik, you are being mayavadi. And then they understand our mind. They don't just label and dismiss. And third is that they help us understand our mind. Yeah, I understand how you're thinking, and your thinking is right till here, but maybe here your thinking might be going wrong. You need to evaluate that. So they help us understand our mind. So if we have even one person like that, Kaikai had Bharat, Wali did not have anyone. So having good association in general and having at least one close association that can save us from a lot of the problems that may come, either because of the conditions we are in or because of the conditionings we may have. So one person, what like-minded association, what happens by that is, we are able to look at our mind through them. For most people, what happens is, we look at them through our mind. So if there's even one person who can help us look at our mind through them, that is extremely powerful. Many people nowadays have mental health problems and they go to therapists. The one reason is not that they are insane, not that they're mad or something like that, but just that they just need someone to clear their mind. Now, I'm not recommending going to therapists, but I'm talking about how people, when they are lonely, mental health problems often increase when there is a lot of loneliness. So when they are lonely, the mind is speaking something and you just don't have any alternative narrative to the mind's narrative. So we need that. In devotee association, if we develop this close friendship, it may be in our particular community, it may be a different community, it may be a different place. If you find that clicking happens within one person, invest time in that relationship so that we can be there for them and they will be there for us. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. Broadly, we discussed 3 points. First was, we discussed about this paradox of good people doing bad things and how do we understand that. So I discussed that our actions are determined by 2 factors, our conditions and our conditionings. So what is inside us and what is outside us. And we discuss this spectrum of positive and negative, positive and positive, conditions and conditionings. And I won't go into the diagram fully, but the idea is that this is the best situation, this is the worst situation. So as much as possible, we try to avoid the situation where we have conditionings also, and the conditions are tempting for that. And we try to have the best situation as much as we can. Then we discussed about the human nature. We could put it in terms of there can be three broad kinds of people. Human nature can be goodness. That means in all conditions they will always act properly. Wickedness means in all conditions, in good conditions they will act bad. When there is weakness, then it depends. So as examples of weakness, we discuss the spectrum of three characters. Who are the characters? Sugriv, Kaikai and Vali. Yes, excellent. And what we discussed was how for Sugriv it was primarily the conditionings. Was it? No, it was primarily the conditionals. Yes, the conditions was much more the conditioning, it never came back afterwards. It was just exceptional conditions in which he did something wrong. But for him, in each situation we will see that it was some individual, some person who rescued them from that situation. Now for Kaikai, we could say here it was the condition much more than conditionings. For her the conditions were there, but actually you can say there were definitely some conditioning also. There was jealousy. There was some level of rivalry which led to some suspicion. Now, even if mantras poisoned her mind, there has to be something inside her for her to get that much affected, isn't it? So there were some conditionings definitely there. But in this case, here it was mostly that the conditions were passive. That it was not that the court dancers were deliberately trying to provoke Sugriv. They're just doing their job. But here the mantra was, there was active condition that was there. That was actually someone was trying to instigate. There was mantra over here. Now in the case of Vali, it was the conditions hardly played any role. Definitely the initial was the condition. It is an understandable misunderstanding. But in his case, let alone anybody instigating him, there were people who were active deterrents were there. Deterrents means there were people who were telling him don't do this, and yet he did that. The courtiers were there, the Tara was there, but he didn't listen to anyone. So in his case, it was primarily his conditionings that led to the wrong action. And that's why he needed that final shock treatment of Lord Ram's arrow to be corrected. And then the last part we discussed was, so how do we bring about protection for ourselves or for others in particular situations? So basically if we have to judge others or evaluate others, then we have to see what primarily caused it. Was the condition or the conditionings? So generally if it's the conditions, then mostly it is guard against the conditions and forgive. Don't hold it against them afterwards. Then don't get into those conditions again, be careful. But generally with conditionings, then some amount of disciplining or punishing is required. So it depends on the corrective action that is required. Overall, we talked about how the protection can come is the spiritual environment can provide us positive conditions. So whether it is our children, ourselves, we try to have as much of a spiritual environment as possible, and it is that environment may be good, but we need to have our personal spiritual practice by which we can have positive conditionings within us. And in this way, we all can, from this position of weakness, move toward goodness, so that even in tempting situations, we won't be pulled down. And we won't go down ever toward wickedness. So Vali actually went down toward wickedness for a particular phase of his life. Sugriv never did that, nor did Kaikai do that. She was weakness. In weakness she did something terrible. But she came back to goodness soon. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any quick question? Yes, bro.
This condition and conditioning are predestined or part of free will?
Is this question predestined? Okay. I think it is a complicated thing. Certainly, there is a role of destiny in it. The kind of conditionings we have, the kind of conditions we have, say, destiny plays a role. If let's consider the situation of Ajamil. Now, Ajamil, he didn't plan to go into any tempting area. He just went out to get firewood for his father's fire sacrifice. And that's what he had been doing regularly. And that time suddenly he saw this sight. So we could say it was completely destiny for him. So destiny can sometimes put us in provocative situations. So so sometimes the situation that we get in is completely due to destiny. But sometimes we ourselves know that I am getting into a danger zone right now. Say we are working in our office and there is some person who seems to be attracted towards us, who has some interest in us, improper adharmic interest in us, and we notice that, but we don't shut it down. When that person coming in our life might be because of destiny, but if we get some pleasure in that person's attention and we enjoy that pleasure, we may not do anything wrong, but we don't discourage that. Then that is not due to destiny. That is our indulging in that, even to a small degree. That will be our own actions, our own free will being misused. And then after that is going on for some time. And then after that, somehow some situation comes up, there's a late night project and that person is there and we are there and everyone else goes. Now we can say that situation may also have come out of destiny. But then all that attachment or attraction or infatuation that we have fueled in the intermediate, that may impel us to do something adharmic. And so we can say the conditions may come because of destiny, but we do make choices by which the effect of those conditions can become worse or lesser. Like somebody is, say, alcoholic and they're trying to recover from alcoholism, and they just get a job. They just don't get a job anywhere. The only job they get is in a bar. Now somebody will say, I just die, I'll not take a job in a bar. But that's the only job they get. What can they do? Maybe that's their destiny. But if they are there now, maybe they have to create some systems. Maybe they have in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have an accountability partner. Every few hours you call your friend and you talk with them and inform them, keep yourself on track. But if they start neglecting that, let me take one drink, what is the big deal? And one drink becomes 2 drinks and become 3 drinks, and then they just become full-blown relapse. So conditions may come by past karma, but it is we who fuel or weaken our position in those conditions by our present actions. Similarly, conditionings. Sometimes we may be practicing bhakti and we may find that a particular desire has more or less gone away, and suddenly that desire starts coming back. And we have not done anything to indulge in that desire, we have not fantasized, but suddenly that craving starts coming up. Like somebody may be living maybe they practice bhakti, they lose their desire, I want a big house and I want a lot of wealth. And then suddenly one starts feeling a lot of discontentment. Oh, this person has such a big house, this person has a big car. Start feeling agitated by that. So now that kind of conditioning suddenly rising up, that could happen because of past karma. But then, what do we do? So the worst situation is, by past karma, we are with strong conditioning, and by past karma we are in a tempting condition. If that happens, that's really a difficult situation to be in. But even then, how have we lived our life before that? If the small temptations have been coming and we have been saying no to those temptations, then when that big temptation comes, we'll be able to say no to it. But small temptations, we've been saying yes. When a small temptation, if I say yes, what's the big deal? It doesn't make any difference. I'll be thinking like that. But then those small temptations and the indulgence in those temptations will lead to a situation where by destiny we come, that confluence of bad, strong conditionings and tempting conditions come up. Then we may just fall, and we may have a grievous fall at that time. So our choices do matter. Both conditions and conditionings may come because of destiny, but our choices do matter in how we will deal with those conditions and conditionings. Okay? Thank you. Good question. Important question. Any other last question? Yes, ma'am.
Manthara's situation, she will be in the mode of weakness or wickedness, and throughout her life, what was she? I actually don't know. So maybe little.
Yeah, good question. Again, interesting. See, Manthara is by no means like a central character. There's hardly any reference to her after that incident. When in the Ramayana, when Lord Ram comes back after the 14 years exile, so Kaikeyi is there to welcome. Now Manthara is not a part of the family, but there's no mention of her, so she doesn't play any major role. Now, what is described in the Ramayana is that there are two levels of understanding it. It was not wickedness so much. She had been a friend of, she was like a nurse of Kaikeyi since her childhood. She had come from her mother's place with her. So they had a close relationship. She was generally known to be irritable. But she was irritable, but she was never evil. That's why even Kaikeyi was caught off guard by what Manthara did. But Kaikeyi did not blame Manthara for it. Kaikeyi, I believed her. So she took responsibility for it, for what happened. But we can look at it from a psychological perspective, and we can look also at it from a philosophical perspective. So from a philosophical or a devotional perspective, what we understand is it was Manthara's mind was influenced by the Devatas so that Lord Ram would go to exile. And so she became an instrument in that way. But it was not that just she wanted to be of service to Devatas. She had her agenda. What had happened was that she was a hunchback woman. And because of that, because of her hunchback, because of that being disfigured, she was teased and mocked sometimes. Not very viciously, but just playfully. And she had resented that. But when Kaikeyi became the favorite queen of Dasharatha, then she was the favorite maid of Kaikeyi. So her position in the royal staff became elevated. So in Kaikeyi's kingdom, she was often mocked. But here, since the time she came, soon after that, she had got a privileged position. And when she heard that Ram will become the king, then what will happen is that Ram's mother will get the privileged position, or Ram's wife. But either way, Kaikeyi will not have that privileged position. And if Kaikeyi doesn't have the privileged position, then I won't also have my privileged position. And she didn't want to lose that. So you could say it was a selfish agenda, definitely. But was it evil? She had no agenda to destroy Ram. It was her own small concern, because of which she ended up causing a large catastrophe. So sometimes it has happened in Indian political history. At least 2-3 times I know that there are two brothers. They had some rivalry. One was the king, the other was the minister. The king did not treat the brother properly, or the brother felt mistreated. And then the brother allied with some invading Muslim army. And then what happened was, the invading Muslim army promised him that, we will make you the king. And then after he helped his brother to be defeated and killed, then the Muslim invaders killed the brother also, and they took over the kingdom. So, or even if they let him become the king, they kept him like a puppet, and then they spread adharma all over the world. So now there is a small rivalry that could have been resolved, but from that rivalry there was a conspiracy, and from that conspiracy there was treachery, and treachery that led to complete depravity. Terrible things happened. So it is bad, but probably she never expected that this would lead to Dashrath Maharaj dying. So it was because Dashrath Maharaj died and his wife becomes a widow. Then again she won't have much privileged position there. So it sometimes so you can say she's not an evil character. So it's more on the weakness. But in that particular phase, what she did led to a chain of events which was terrible. Okay. So thank you very much. Shri Ramachandra Bhagwan ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. So much of what I spoke today is similar to the contents of this small book, Living the Ramayana, life lessons from Ramayana. So about that 8-9 essays are there in this, and incidents such as what we described, narration of the incident along with some life lessons from there are there in this book. If you'd like to have it, I'll be here for some time and I can sign the book also. And there is this calendar with 365 quotes inspired